So just a couple days ago, I was hanging out with one of my local buddies, and he had recently picked up Transformers Legacy Blaster. And anyone who saw the live stream just a couple of days ago, I also got Blaster. And it kind of opened up this conversation of what we expect from our classics universe generation-esque kind of retail product, especially with what's going to be happening in the future, because we look at some figures and we go, oh, wow, like they've really peaked in terms of what they could do and everything. And what is the expectation that we have from the Generations line of toys when it comes to specific characters? And we went back and forth. And, again, Blaster kept coming up where it's like, you know what? It's a great figure, but there's still more that could be done to that figure, to that price point, to that limit that could lead to another release existing and more money being generated from that character and that design from that continuity. And it just led to, we were driving around and having conversation back and forth. And it ultimately ended with like him going like, that'd be a really good Patreon listener question. Has any of your fans asked that? And I'm like, no one's ever asked that, but maybe if you word it like one, we could make it a topic on the podcast. So this is a non-Patreon listener question from my buddy Jules. And what he wanted to know was, and he pretty much worded it as, do you want to see Generations toys updated from their old character designs, like an updated kind of design? Or do you want something that kind of was, taking that old design and making as show accurate and screen accurate as possible with updated engineering? When we're talking updated designs, we're talking more like what the Classics line and the Universe line and a good chunk of Generations did initially, which is we can't do those old designs, so we're going to take those characters and take that general, I guess we'll call it the spirit of it, and give it an updated design and a new kind of look, but it's still that original character from that era. And the question is which do you prefer more? Do you prefer, like, let's say, upgrading or recreating? Do you want to upgrade the character to what it could be in the today's era, or recreating what that design was back then? What do you expect from the Generations line to do that? And I really want to know your answers with this too, because I feel like even me, I'm kind of conflicted on that answer, because part of me is like, I would prefer it that, like I look at Masterpiece and I go, you know what? Masterpiece is such a great foundation and such a great platform that you have that huge budget where you can make that perfect animation accurate version of that character at that price point, and that could be that perfect character on that display. And then retail could be where you could have fun with it, where you have that perfect Trailbreaker, and the retail version could be more of an updated version. It could be a different interpretation. But then the argument is, well, not everyone has the income to be buying Masterpieces, so some people would like to have mini Masterpieces where you could have that awesome animation model but at a more affordable deluxe price point, or Voyager or whatever. So I could understand that argument too. But you also combine with the fact that there's certain characters that will just never get a Masterpiece, shot. We just talked about Nitro Convoy just a couple days ago, and I'm like, oh, Nitro Convoy Override, that's never going to get a Masterpiece toy. Maybe in the third-party world, but never on the Takara Tomy world. So it's something where you need to have that character if you want to get that animation accurate look. It's only going to happen at the retail space of Generations, not from the Masterpiece line. So I'm kind of conflicted with what I would want from it, because there's certain characters that, I feel that after they peak, after you've really, like someone like Hot Rod, right? Where do you go from there after the Studio Series 86 one? There's no point in trying to make a animation accurate Hot Rod toy anymore based off of the 1986 movie in season 3 of Generation 1. You're better off just doing something new from that point on, unless you're just re-releasing the figure to give people an opportunity to pick it up again 5 years after the fact. But aside from that, you might as well just do something unique, do something new, like what the Titans Return one did. Oh, let's do like a Headmaster thing, or let's do, like in the case of Power of the Primes, let's do an almost Power Master Optimus Prime combiner armor kind of thing. Like I'm kind of conflicted with it, because certain characters I feel now's the time to really just do new updates of them. But on the other side, there's some characters that the only time we're going to get those proper updates will be through that line. I mean, I look at, Legacy RC. And I know a lot of people were kind of disappointed that she didn't look like her original Transformers Prime design. But that being said, those original Transformer Prime designs had a really good job being done from those original Prime toys. Whether it be the first edition version or the Transformers Prime RED version, whichever one you feel is the better one of the two. People have conflicting answers for that. And then, of course, you have the Transformers RED line, which is non-transformable, but also does a pretty good job of matching the animation model. So there's kind of that, too, where at least with Legacy, it gave you something different, a different kind of aesthetic, a different kind of look, but it clearly is that Transformers Prime character. Same thing with the Bulkhead, where if you want to have something that's that other version, granted, yes, Bulkhead secondary market is crazy for the original Prime toy, I understand that. But it's just, I feel that's where it's like, which would you want? Which would you want to have back and forth? Because there's so many of that where I'm like, oh, someone like Hot Rod, I guess it's time to be different now. Or someone like Optimus Prime, it's time to do something different now. But then it's like, well, what do you say when someone turns to me and says, hey, we're going to get a Transformers Legacy. Let me try to think of one here that hasn't been done properly. We're going to get a Transformers Legacy animated Chromia. Would you want a interpretation using the modern aesthetic, or would you want something that really fits into that animation model? Or Flare Up. Flare Up's probably a better example because she actually had some proper screen time, from animated, like an updated Flare Up, aka Firestar. Would you like something that was animation accurate using that aesthetic and that toy design, or would you like something that was just kind of updated into that Legacy kind of generation style that we have with a lot of our toys today? So it's kind of tough. I mean, again, when you even look at Legacy today, you have stuff like the Generation 1 characters that are really good little mini masterpieces in a lot of ways. And then you have some of the non-Generation 1 characters like Prime that their aesthetic kind of has to be different. And as a result, they are updates as opposed to recreates of those characters. But it's a very interesting topic, and it's hard for me to come to a conclusion for myself because you can't just stick to one when it comes to all the thousands and thousands and thousands of Transformer characters, especially the obscure ones like a Nitro Convoy, where its original toy really got a gimmick installed into it and didn't get a fair shake for it to be perfect. So it's nice to see that. Or characters like Animated Chromia that didn't get a toy at all. So when it finally does get a toy, I would like it to be animation accurate. But then when you have characters like Soundwave, I mean, geez, the Masterpiece knocked it out of the park. The Netflix one knocked it out of the park. Again, I understand Masterpiece might be priced out for somebody, and the Netflix one has a terrible secondary market right now. But at the same time, it's like for someone like me, and again, I don't want to sound selfish, but it's like, it's time to do something different with that character and update it as opposed to just doing the same thing over and over. But again, that's where I'm conflicted because it shouldn't just be about my needs, but really what the global need should be for the consumer and the brand as a whole. So that, again, it's a tough question, but it's also an interesting one. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because it really is thought-provoking. And these kind of questions always lead to a lot of different answers from a lot of different walks of life. And it leads to some good conclusions and really makes you think for the future of the brand in a lot of ways, especially with those core characters that have been consistent year after year. Let me know what you think. Very interesting discussion. And hopefully we'll maybe get some stuff that'll come out this week that'll kind of give us a clear indication of some of those characters.